blessed way. Keep me that I may be wholly thine and sing redemption songs someday. And I will be a soldier brave and true and ever firmly take a stand. As I onward go and daily meet the foe, blessed Jesus, hold my hand. Oh Jesus, hold my hand. I need thee every hour. Through this pilgrim land, protect me by thy power. Oh, hear my feeble plea. Oh Lord, look down on me. When I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Blessed Jesus, hold my hand. When I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Blessed Jesus, hold my hand. Go ahead and be seated. Turn all the way to page number 8.
God sent his son. They called him Jesus. He came to love, heal and forgive. He lived and died to buy my pardon. An empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth living just because he lives. How sweet to hold the newborn baby and feel the pride and joy he gives. But greater still, that calm assurance this child can face uncertain days because he lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. because He lives. I can face tomorrow, amen, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He holds the future, and life is worth living day, because He lives. Say the chorus with me one more time. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He holds the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. And life is worth the living just because He lives.
Ooh, thank you, band.
Come on, Johnny.
Awesome job. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Flora-Bama Church. I'm John Mason Smith. I'm on staff here, and I want to welcome everybody for coming out. It's a good, big crowd today. First-time guests, let's give them a hand. I know there's a bunch of you. Hey, we have the saying, it's okay to not be okay. You might have seen that in a few places like that sign over there. What that just means is that it's okay to come just as you are. You're welcome. We consider you part of us now. So you're one of those Flora-Bama Church people. Thanks for being one of those. Hey, when you came in, you should have gotten one of these programs. I got some helpers around the room. If you did not get a program, would you shoot your hand up? We'll get you one. Thank you. And there you go. Got that. This is going to be fun later. You'll want that. And we'll be happy to go. There you go. They're coming around. They'll be referring to several things in that program. If you want to get more connected, want to learn more about our ministry, we have these information tables on both sides of the room. They say info on that big sign over there. Hey, and there's a place, you can put in prayer requests. We have a prayer request card. It's called our Next Step card. It's also a place you can sign up for small groups. You can get involved in our ministry. That's a way to get connected. You fill out the card. When you're done, you can just leave it at the info table, or you can put it into one of our giving stations. So if you look around the room, there's one over there, giant sign, white sign, says giving station, giving station. There's one out there on the way out. Hey, that's also where you can put a donation if you'd like to give tithes or offerings to our ministry. We use that money to rescue people here along the coast. Some of the things we're doing is we're feeding families, we're clothing people. We have a very strong ministry in prisons where we bring the gospel to people behind bars. We also just help the community in general, and your donations make that happen. Thank you so much for being generous. We appreciate it. Hey, one of the things that we're a big part of doing all this is introducing people to Jesus and helping them follow Him. And we do that also through our kids ministry. And I notice there's lots of people here with their kids, and they're going, oh, this was a great idea. Listen, if you want to, in the middle, bail on that, if you send the kids, follow the sign for kids, they're in air conditioning upstairs. We have awesome teaching. They would be a lot more comfortable and have a great time, and they would learn about Jesus up there. So feel free to do that. And if you're too hot, we got air-conditioned seating upstairs. All this is on video. You're welcome to go up there. Hey, those first-time visitors, I got a contest. Shoot your hand up. You've never been to this church before ever. Stick your hand up. Ooh, okay. Awesome. I'm going to give one of you this T-shirt. Not all of you. You have to beat out the others. And the way you beat them out is, here, I got a T-shirt holder upper. The way you beat them out is you just got to have come from further away than everyone else. All right, so I'm going to ask you, if you're a first-time visitor, never been here before, I'm not talking this year ever, one caveat, you can't be from Canada. And if you're never been here before and you think you're far away, shout it out. Missouri, Connecticut probably. Ohio, where? Gulf Shores, no. I hear Connecticut, I think that's far. California, where are they at? California in the back, at least one. There'll probably be a California shootout. Over there on the very back. Wisconsin is not further than California. And, don't insert the Auburn joke here. Okay, I won't. But so far, California, I think it went anybody further. Last chance, yell it out. Don't see it. California wins. I'll see you. All right. Thank God nobody from Canada. Okay, everybody stand up.
Stand up and shout.
Find somebody you don't know. Hey, there's probably people you don't know. Give them a hug.
In your honky tonk hymnal, sort of. Grace that brought
All right, good.
This could be some kind of wonderful. By request of Brandon here. Is there anybody got a sweet loving Savior like mine? Got to be somebody got a sweet loving Savior like mine. Yeah, can I get a witness? 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 We're talking about my Jesus, some kind of wonderful. Talking about my Jesus, some kind of wonderful. Talking about my Jesus, some kind of wonderful. Talking about my Jesus. We're talking about my Jesus, my Jesus, my Jesus, my Jesus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some kind of wonderful. Some kind of wonderful.
Whoa! Way to rock it, band. Thank you guys so much. Hey, again, thank you for coming today. We're so glad you're here for our special guest today. Some of you may have heard that we have a special guest today. Is Andy Andrews. Woo-hoo. Andy is the one of the most sought after speakers in America, and it's so wonderful to have him here. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's got a new book out that it's hard to keep because every time I think about something, I think, oh, I got to get him that book, The Little Things. It's called The Little Things. Make it your summer reading. You don't want to miss it. It's a great book. It's real easy to read on the beach. You can knock it out and then buy more than one because you'll need to give it away. He does have a table set up around the corner as you go out, and every single book over there is signed by Andy Andrews, so you don't have to hunt them down afterwards. Go pick some of those up. Hey, would you give me a big Flora-Bama welcome for Mr. Andy Andrews?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Woo. I love being here, and I know Jeff and the guys are all back there. That was a great job. Don't you love listening to them? I do. I mean, Amazing Grace, just like we heard when we were kids. So great. I wonder. I woke up this morning thinking about this. I wonder if you believe, like I believe, that things happen for a reason. That we have free will. You know, that is like one of the tenets of Christianity is that we have free will, that God gave us free will. Sometimes I wonder why. I mean, maybe he just thought it would be more interesting to watch. I don't know. But it is part of what we are, part of who we are, part of what we believe that God gave us the will to choose. And I woke up thinking about that this morning and determined as the father of two boys and a husband of a beautiful wife, I'm thinking, man, I got to really pay attention to this. I got to really pay attention to choosing well. I see your fans. I know you guys are hot, but that's one of the great things about being with us here at this church, because a lot of churches will just talk about hell. We'll show you what it feels like if you have to go. Wonder what would happen if you owned a Chevrolet and your Chevrolet kept breaking down and you just seemed determined to use that Ford manual to fix it. You ever thought about that? Ever thought about choosing wrongly and choosing wrongly in an obvious way? I mean, I wonder sometimes, what would my friends think of me if I used a different manual to fix the car that I own? And not that I could actually fix one anyway. I'm lucky I can put gas in a car. But you get the idea that we have something and we have a manual that we can actually look at to see when something's kind of off, and yet we ignore the manual. You know, I believe that the Bible is a manual. It's like a manual for human beings. And even though I don't always understand the manual, I'm fine with that. You know, I've heard people say sometimes, they say, well, you know, it's just too hard to understand. And I'm like, yeah, well, I get that. I do get that. But I've never bought a camera that the manual wasn't too hard to understand for me. And I still use the camera. And I'll get enough of the manual to be able to function and to function correctly. And then if I want to advance in my photographic skills, I'll grab that manual and really dig in again. And that's true of almost every part of my life. I dig into something when I want the results to be better. Does that make sense? And so some time ago, I got to thinking, if I don't believe that things are random, if I don't believe that things are random, and I don't, hey, Bubba, I believe that there is a purpose. I believe that things do happen for a reason, that they aren't random. I mean, I guess I can see why some people would think that well, everything just kind of came together. I guess. I mean, it almost seems ridiculous to me. I just got to say, people say, well, there was no purpose in anything, and all of a sudden some atoms came together, and I mean, that's just, to me, that's like saying that you would throw a grenade in a junkyard, and when the explosion ended, there would be a fully functioning 747 sitting there. I don't see that as real or as even possible. I think there is a reason. I think things aren't random. And just because I don't understand them sometimes does not mean that it isn't real, that it isn't true. And so as I became a dad, and my wife became a mom, and these boys started growing, one of the things that we felt on us was the obligation to really be at the top of our game. We would read children's books, we would read parenting books, we would go to courses, and one of the things that they would always tell us, every book that we would read, it would say, for a lot of people this works, that 87% of parents who do this with their kids, 87% of the children turn out to, and with this might only work for a smaller percentage of families, but this is something you might want to try. And I grew increasingly frustrated because I thought, percentages? We don't live in Utah. We only have 2 kids. We got to have 100%. Because for us, our kids, the way they turn out, people will look at how they turn out one day, and Polly and I will have either performed a 0%, 50%, or 100%. That's the only choices we have. So we have to have 100%. We only have 2 kids. We need something that worked every time. And so, increasingly, we would go to the manual. And we would find things that we did not understand. In fact, we found a lot of things we didn't understand. It was very, very odd to me that when we would read something that helped us in our life, that we understood it. We understood it. And we read a lot of Proverbs because, that was King Solomon. And I used to watch the movie King Solomon's Mines. Did you ever see that? With Richard Chamberlain, was King Solomon's Mines. And that was such a great movie. It's like the Indiana Jones before he became. But King Solomon's Mines always fascinated me because he was a real person. This was a real guy, and they said that he was the richest person who ever lived on planet Earth, and historians say he was the wisest person. So I thought, well, that's the best anybody ever turned out. Then, okay, if you look at one human, you say who's in first place, it would have to be Solomon, the wealthiest and the wisest of all time on the planet. That would have to be first place. And he wrote tons of stuff in the manual. Because if you haven't grown up in a church like some of us did, then you want to know that the manual is like a collection. It's many different chapters. In fact, the chapters weren't created until the 1600s. And it's a collection of letters and poems and stories. And in fact, some of them were put in and written way after others. But at one point, it all kind of came together to be our manual. All the different pieces were there and true and right. And yet, now we have it all in one place. Well, the Solomon stuff just fascinated me because he was a king, all right? And because he was a king, they kept everything he wrote. I mean, kings, they do that. You know, Henry VIII, if he ate with a fork, which evidently he didn't sometimes. So you look at him, he was skipping the fork, going right to his mouth. But if he used a fork, people kept it. They said, well, the king used this, and so let's keep it. Things kings used, things kings wrote, and they said, people recorded them. Well, Solomon, almost everything he wrote was there. I mean, and if you read the stuff he wrote stuff that talks about how to find a great spouse, he wrote stuff about how to raise your kids, about how to make money, about what to do with your money when you get it, how to make more money out of your money, how to build a business, when to build a house. I mean, all this stuff is in there. And at some point, you know, you think, really, why would he write all this? Okay, maybe I'm naturally suspicious of people's motives, especially of authors, okay? And so I think, okay, so, because I read books sometimes, I say, okay, now why did you write this? You know, what little political message are we sending here? And so I would wonder about Solomon, because in the manual is supposed to be the inspired word of God, which means that it's the truth. And even if I don't understand it, it's the truth. And so as we would find things that we understood, we would use them. But if we didn't understand them, we didn't use them. But that makes sense, right? Because if you don't understand it, wouldn't you wait until you understood it before you did it? It made sense to me. And as I read this stuff that he wrote through the years, occasionally I would find something that I had not understood, and then I go, oh, okay, well, I know what that means. And it would make sense. And then I would start using it, and curiously, that worked too. But then I read this thing that he wrote. He wrote, lean not on your understanding. And that bothered me a little bit. Until I figured out, I thought, how do I know? You want to think, well, this is an inspired word of God. Okay, but this is a guy writing this. I think sometimes we might have the question, the Christians, we might have a question, who am I listening to? Am I listening to God or am I listening to myself? Yes, I think you're correct. I think you do want me to have a boat. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes. And so, you don't want to suspect that Solomon might have, thrown something in there for himself. And so it's like, how do I know this stuff is good? It's a very curious thing. If King Solomon was the wealthiest person in history, was a king. You know how kings become wealthy, right? You know how kings make their money? Taxes. Taxes. And so I'm thinking, of course he would tell people how to run their businesses. Of course he would tell people the best way to make money. Because the more money they made, he gets a percentage. So surely he would want to, and he would want their families to be as happy as possible, because surely he would know that anybody who's running a business, that their family's in disarray and their kids are crazy and they're having problems, their business is messing up. They're not doing as well as they would. And so he had a personal reason to give everybody the absolute truth. And so I think what Solomon was saying on lean not on your own understanding was, hey, some of this stuff is going to make sense to you. And if it makes sense to you, do it. But I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you want to wait until it makes sense to you and then do it, you'll find out that I tell you the truth about that, and that'll work too. But if you want to skip ahead on the program, and you can lean not on your own understanding, and understand I'm getting this stuff from God, and this is true, and whether, gravity works whether you understand it or not. Right? I mean, you ain't got to wait to really understand. Gravity was working long before the apple ever fell on Newton's head. Now, once he understood it, we as a society were free to harness that principle and understand it more, and then create suspension bridges and an airline flight. But if we can pay attention to the manual, now I want to connect some dots for you. If you look at where we are, if you've been here, listen, I am thrilled to be here, but I'm also disappointed for you that you're here on a weekend, that if you're here for the first time. And how many of you are here for the first time? I'm just curious. Okay, so if you're here for the first time, the only reason I'm disappointed for you is that Dan is not here, okay? Because I really, really, really think that you want to come back and hear him. Now, we're right in the middle of Dan doing like 5 weeks on the 10 Commandments. Okay? And so I'm like coming in and just like doing like the commercial break, We'll be right back after this message next week with more of the 10 Commandments. And so Dan will be back with this, all right? But I thought, I hate to just like stop in and just like mess everything up without referring to what's going on, because I want, when we get back to it, I want you to have a little bit different perspective on it, all right? And so the verses we have, if you look at the middle one first. See, I think that a lot of the reason that we don't do what the manual says is because we don't know why it said it in the first place. We say, okay, but why? Now, maybe they don't do that in other countries, but in America, man, we're stubborn. We're going to go our own. We're going to do whatever we want to anyway. You can say what? I mean, you could be dying of thirst, and somebody say, here's a glass of water. Really, why are you giving me that? I mean, that's just the way we are. I don't know what the deal is, but we want to know why, and why is a huge part of moving forward, because we can move forward with confidence when we know why. All right? So if you look at this middle one, it's Deuteronomy 6 and 7. Now, Dan is explaining the why of the 10 Commandments. And if you look at this one, it says, it says you must think constantly about these commandments. You must teach them to your children and talk about them when you're at home or out for a walk, at bedtime, and the first thing in the morning. That's like a commandment about the commandments is what it is. It's telling us what we're supposed to do with these 10 commandments. And if you ask this very simple question, you say, okay, why? Why? Well, as parents, you want the best for your children. As citizens, you want the best for your community. You want the best for your country. And the thing, it says, it's not just a teaching, but you must think constantly about these commandments. You must. And you must teach them to your children and talk about them when you're at home or out for a walk, at bedtime, and the first thing in the morning. Okay, why? Look at Deuteronomy 6:3. Look at the top one. Therefore, nation, pay attention to each commandment and be careful to obey it, so that all will go well with you. Does it get any plainer than that? Let me tell you why you pay attention to them. So you'll have a great life. Okay, nation, why do we want you to pay attention to these? So that your nation will prosper. So that your nation will function correctly. Now, it's odd to me that we may think sometimes, the 10 Commandments. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you start listing them: don't kill, don't steal. I mean, some of these things are pretty obvious, you would think. But it doesn't seem like we're paying that much attention to them. Because if we were paying that much attention to them, and if we understood that if we paid attention to them, all would go well with us. I mean, if we really believed that, holy cow, there's 10 things. And if we can just dial in on these 10 things, all will go well with. Get this. One of them, Dan is going to talk about. Get this, kids. I see kids in here. One of them, Dan will talk about, and I don't know if he'll say this, but there's one of them. Honor your father and your mother. Do you know what? Get this. Honor your father and mother. That is the one of the 10 commandments that is different from the others. You know why? Because it comes with a specific promise. Honor your father and your mother, and you will have a long and good life. Now, okay, but see, to me, I got to look and I go, okay, so what happens if I don't honor my father and my mother? But fortunately, I don't even have to think about that, because the manual says, honor your father and your mother, and you will be rewarded with a good life. The good life. A prosperous life. And then all 10 of them. Why? Why pay attention to them? Because if you do, all will go well with you. Now, why would we have to spend 5 weeks talking about these things? Well, we spend 5 weeks talking about them because it's a little more in depth than just, hey, do this and don't do that. Because we're kind of cantankerous and stubborn, we do have to have things explained to us sometimes. And we do want to know the why. And so Dan's really getting into the why so we can really understand. I talked to a person the other day who is a very, like a high-level leadership person in our nation. And I just made the comment. I said one of the most important things to me is our parenting skills. We got to be careful with this, because I believe that parenting is the fulcrum that our society tilts on. It don't matter if you have kids, don't have kids, already raised your kids, don't like kids. It don't matter. I mean, every day when you wake up, everything you use, everything you see, everybody you make contact with, everything it operates in the fashion that somebody made it, and they made it with the quality or the lack of quality or the sneakiness or whatever, according to a little bit about how they were parented, the people you run into. Parenting it's the deal. I mean, I work with a lot of companies. And I've developed this reputation of being able to help companies and teams. And the funny thing about it is they always say, gosh, and he doesn't know anything about the mortgage industry, and he doesn't know anything about cars. I mean, whatever company I'm working with, I'll get off the phone with a football coach, and my wife will often just say 2 words. She'll say, 6th grade. And I'll go, yeah. Because we kind of laugh about it. I've worked with actually with my materials or me, or so I've got my hand in the last 9 college football national championships, and I only played football in the 6th grade. I don't really know anything about it, really, but it's a people thing, and more specifically, it's a parenting thing. They don't really understand what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about parenting stuff. And if you dial in to the very essence of it, well, there it is. There's a few things in the manual that talk about it. I mean, think about a college football team. Man, how much easier would life be? Just the 10 commandments. You guys don't do anything else but lift weights, run, learn your plays, and just obey the 10 commandments. You obey the 10 commandments, we're cool. But see, this doesn't happen. I have a friend that was the chaplain of an SEC team a few years ago. And this was probably, this was 15 or 20 years ago. And at that time, there were 78 illegitimate children represented by the members on that team. I don't mean that they were, I mean they had them. But just think about just what, if we just paid attention to that. But our society is kind of crazy. I flew in yesterday and I went into Dick's Sporting Goods. I could not buy a dartboard. I couldn't buy a dartboard because they don't sell dartboards, because evidently somebody might hurt somebody with them, and so you couldn't buy a dartboard at Dick's Sporting Goods anymore. Thank you. You didn't use this on your nose, did you? Okay, only twice. Good. And yet, if you went into the clothing section of Dick's Sporting Goods, and I've got a picture of it because people say, "Oh, you're kidding." It said, "No tobacco or marijuana smoking." A sign. A sign. It was like, really? Do we need the sign? I guess we do. I guess we do. In the manual, Luke 2:52 says, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." Wow. Now there is a huge clue about parenting. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Oh, in stature. Of course. He grew up. He grew taller. Wisdom. Wouldn't we expect Jesus to grow in wisdom? I mean, he's a kid, now he's going to be a teenager, now he's going to be a man. I mean, we would expect that he would grow in wisdom, in favor with God. Well, of course he would. He's God's son. But see, this is the part here that people don't pay attention to. He grew, as he was growing up, he grew in favor with God and man. He grew in favor with man. You know what that means, don't you? People liked him. They liked him. Not just the teenagers, not just the other kids. Adults liked him. He grew in favor with God and man. You know why? You know why adults liked him? He had manners. Wouldn't you think? If Jesus grew in favor with man, wouldn't you think he had manners? Wouldn't you think people liked him for a reason? Okay, wait, Andy, why are you talking about manners? Well, because we're back to the Ten Commandments. We're back to this whole thing about be careful so that all will go well with you. As adults in our society today, we have to take some responsibility for how our children are turning out. And I mean as a whole. I don't mean just yours. Yeah, yours did well. And, mine seemed to be on the right track. And I know your son, and he's doing great. But over there, who knows, right? I'm saying, so we have to take responsibility for this, which means we better dig into the manual and understand some of the connections about what we are doing. What are we doing? Let me ask you something. If you looked in the 1960s and Google the top 10 things high school teachers had to deal with, the top 10 problems they have, I can just tell you, I've done it. It's a hilarious list because it's like gum chewing and running in the halls and tardiness, and like smoking. And so, but if you look at the top 10 list, the things that teachers have problems with today, that they're dealing with today, if you didn't know this was high school, you'd think, is this prison? Is this a prison list? It's scary. And yet, I wonder sometimes, have you ever looked back at some of the yearbooks and seen these kids in the 30s and the 40s and seen what they look like? They look like they're in their 30s and 40s, don't they? Is that weird how they look? So their hairstyles, their clothes, and I'm not just talking about just these photos. I'm talking about the photos of them in class, the photos of them, on the yearbook staff, on their jaunts. I mean, they look older. We have this thing we say that the greatest generation, they were the greatest generation, that group of people, you know what I'm saying? The greatest generation. I might be the only person in America who disagrees that they were the greatest generation. I would give that label to their moms and dads. Because what standards did they employ to raise a group of people that across the board sacrificed more, became more, produced more? By what standards did these moms and dads and teachers and grandparents raise and explain things to children that 70 years later we still look back and say that's the best we ever were? And we look back at those people and they look old. That baffled me for years. Every time I'd look at one of those pictures, I'd look at this. This guy looks like he's 40. He's 18. But across the board, there was something happening there. I am convinced that at that point, children admired adults and admired adulthood. They wanted to grow up. They wanted to get older. They wanted to produce. They wanted to help. They wanted to be a part. They wanted to lead. And somewhere along the line, you'd see pictures of kids back then that looked so old. But now, everywhere you look, you see old people high-fiving and fist bumping and wearing their hats backwards. When did we start to want to be the kids? First Corinthians, it says, now see, here's the thing, maybe we didn't mean to. Maybe we didn't mean to, but you don't know gravity? You don't know gravity? It don't matter. I don't care if you know it or not. Go stumble down the stairs. See what happens. Okay? Maybe we didn't know it. Maybe we didn't understand it. But right here in the manual it says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. And because I thought like a child, I understood like a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. Let me tell you something. As a society, as people who believe, ain't nobody ever going to hire your kid because he can fist bump. I'm telling you. And if we expect our children to grow up shaking hands like men and women, you can't be the only one in your world doing it. We have got to grab hold of each other because everything we do matters. Every move we make, every action we take matters. You heard of the butterfly effect, right? The butterfly effect, a doctoral thesis written in 1963 by Edward Lorenz, laughed out of the place because it said the butterfly would flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion, then move other molecules of air, and somewhere along the line could actually create weather patterns on the other side of the world. Look, it was crazy, but it was so interesting it hung around forever in myth and urban legend and comic books and bad movies. Until finally physics professors proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable, and it worked every time. And not just with butterflies. It worked with any form of moving matter, including people. And they gave it the status of a law, just one of God's laws, just one of the laws of God's universe. Scientifically, they call it the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions, and it works every time. And you can reverse engineer the life of any great person you want to. I wrote a book called The Butterfly Effect that has the story of this person that is hugely, hugely celebrated. In fact, Iowa just put his statue in the Capitol. In the nation's capital. His name is Norman Borlaug. And they had determined that his work with plants in the 1930s has literally saved from famine the lives of 2 billion people across the world. But if you reverse engineer Borlaug's life, you can see very quickly that it wasn't really Borlaug that was the be-all and the end-all. There was a guy named Henry Wallace who was the second of third. Can you believe Roosevelt had three different vice presidents, elected 4 times, 3 different vice presidents, and the middle one, before Truman, a guy named Henry Wallace, had been the Secretary of Agriculture, and while he was Vice President, he created a station in Mexico whose sole purpose was to figure out how to hybridize corn and wheat for arid climates. And he hired a young man named Norman Borlaug to run it. And Norman Borlaug got the Nobel Prize, and Norman Borlaug was celebrated for... But really, when you think about it, it was that Henry Wallace connection. And of course, when Henry Wallace was a child, when he was 6 years old, his daddy, a dairy sciences professor at Iowa State, hired this young African-American man to babysit him. And this young man would take him out into the fields on the weekends and out into the forest and show him about plants and what they could do for humanity. And George Washington Carver flapping his butterfly wings with a 6-year-old long before he ever thought about being Vice President of the United States. And so you can say, well, George Washington Carver certainly then was the one who created, 2 billion people. We'll give that one to Carver. But if you remember that Carver was born a slave, and in Missouri, his dad was already dead, and one night Quantrill's raiders came through this farm owned by a guy named Moses and his wife Susan, and the Quantrill's raiders burned the barn. They shot several people, and they drug off Mary Washington and this little baby George. And as things happened, they went and traded. Moses went and traded the last horse they had left on the farm for the life of that child. They knew the mother was already dead. And they traded for that child, traded a black horse for that baby. And brought that baby back and told God if they would just keep him alive, they would raise him as their own. They promised God they would educate this baby to honor his mother, who they knew was already dead, and they told that baby that they would give him their name. And that's how Moses and Susan Carver came to raise that little baby George Washington. So you could credit the wife, the farmer's wife, who arranged the meeting with 2 billion. You see what I'm saying? How far back can we go to show the moves that people make that end up shaping the world according to the manual, according to God's plan? And what I'm telling you here, just in a break of the 10 Commandments that Dan is doing, I'm telling you, you are so important to God. There is nothing that you can do to make God love you less. And I talk to people sometimes, they say, yeah, but you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I've done. My life, you don't know what I've done. And I say, really? They say, yeah. I mean, God can never forgive what I've done. And I've asked Kobe, I said, really? So let me ask you this. Have you ever had an affair with somebody and got him pregnant and then killed her husband? And they're so, oh, God, no. And I said, well, that's what David did. Yeah, that's what David did. That was Solomon's daddy. The baby was Solomon. That's what David did. And David repented. David told God, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Can I start again? And God said, David was the man after his own heart. And if you're keeping track, Solomon is Richard Chamberlain. King David, that was Richard Gere in another movie. But all I'm saying, you guys, is God has a plan for you. How far back could we go to show who saved the 2 billion? How far forward could we go in your life? There are generations yet unborn whose very life shifted what you do this afternoon and what you understand this evening. Put into place tomorrow. Everything you do. Now, we pray. Lord, thank you for these people. Thank you for this time together. Father, thank you for this church. Thank you, Father, for your Son, who you sent for us. Thank you for your forgiveness. Thank you for your love. Thank you, Lord, for your patience with us. Amen.
Thank you, Andy. Amazing message. Y'all go ahead and stand up if you aren't standing yet. Hey, don't forget, Andy has all his books signed, and they're right out here as you go out that way. There's his sons that he's raising over there working on that. Hey, if you're a first-time visitor, please stop by our info tables and get a gift for you. We say this every week. It's written on your fan, which you're going to leave behind today because we're running out. If God is for us, who can be against us? We'll see you next week.
You have a blessed week. Life is